Hey, welcome to the program. I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Kellan Lutz here with us. Brand new show coming to CBS. FBI Most Wanted. There it is.
FBI Most Wanted.
How are you, man? Good to meet you.
Hey, you too, man.
You got a lot going on in your life. Your wife's pregnant.
Yeah.
Got a new show on the way. What's all this like? Are you absorbing it? Are you present? How are you dealing with it all?
I am. I'm a bit of a control freak. I like being in control, and doing television in a different city for such a long period of time is definitely something new. But my wife and I were handling it pretty awesome. I mean, to film in New York, and I've always wanted to live here. My wife's always wanted to live here. And then shooting a show that takes place all around New York has been really special for us to really dive in and feel like we're New Yorkans now. Yeah. The weather's kind of crazy, especially with my wife being pregnant.
Definitely a pretty wild time to be here.
It is. But the cool thing about New York is everything, there's an app for everything. There's a service for everything. And as much as I want to be in charge and take care of everything, you got to have a comfortable life, a peaceful life, and you need to have help in some seasons of life.
Totally.
And when you live in a big city like this, the more help you can get, the better.
Totally. What have been some of the cool New York City experiences so far for you?
For the show? Or
for the show and just for life in general.
So for the show, we barely shoot in a studio, maybe 1 out of the 9 days. So the rest, the 8 other days, are all in different suburbs. So we shoot from White Plains to Sleepy Hollow to Scarsburg to Bronxville, Long Beach, Jersey side.
So you're all over the tri-state.
All over the place. So it's really cool seeing New York for like the beauty that is New York. A lot of people just come to Manhattan, and it's a beautiful state.
Yeah,
it really is. So that's been a cool thing. Just the other day, it was just snowing in Winter Wonderland. It was just such a cool experience. I have my good heavy jacket now, which I've never owned before, and now I have that, and it's just cool. It's a unique season of life for us.
Definitely. So being on a Dick Wolf show is definitely a pretty cool experience. You've done a bunch of different things before. What sticks out about this experience? What have you liked the most so far?
Man, I don't have much experience in the TV world. It's a different structure. Films, I've done a lot of movies where you know the stop and start, and you know the arc of your character. For television, I've done a lot of miniseries, so nothing, knock on wood, we hope this goes forever. Yeah. We have such a great cast. I love my cast. We have such a great captain, Julian McMahon, who's leading our ship. Nicest guy I've worked with. And just the rest of our cast is layered. Nathaniel, Roxy, Keisha. It's
you got a good squad.
Really cool squad and very unique. But the cool thing about a Dick Wolf show is how well oiled it is. From stepping onto set, we have the best camera crew. We have the best actors, best writers. Everything's just so well oiled that even my agent was like, "Oh, how's it going? Season 1, like, are you?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Usually, takes a while for everyone to get on their feet and to function as a unit." I'm like, "This is easy. It really is." I mean, the subject matter is really dark. It's really gritty. We are an elite team going after the most heinous of criminals.
The worst of the worst. Yeah.
The worst of the worst. So the subject matter. And I used to think Dick Wolf shows were sort of, they don't go super deep from the shows that I've watched.
Sure.
It's good entertainment. And when I watched our backdoor pilot from FBI into FBI Most Wanted, and seeing that we just blew a guy's arm off, I'm like,
that's quite a place to start.
These are, and then the stories, the writing underneath, I'm like, this is like a movie.
Yeah.
Like it's a really dark movie. And to think that a lot of these stories come from real life Most Wanted list stories, and I'd even go online. My wife and I, we love
doing a deep dive there.
Yeah, detective work, and we're like, "Yep, that came from that." Ooh, man, and that's sort of the sad juxtaposition, is that we'll never have an end to the Most Wanted,
right?
Because
it keeps going.
There's just so much. There's so many criminals out there doing just bad, heinous things, So it's cool to be a part of a team. I've always had this injustice fighting heart in me, so to play an FBI agent, it just feels at home. I feel at home here, even though it's freezing.
Where does that injustice in your heart, fighting for, come from?
I think God just made me this way, and I also come from a very large family. I was a middle child, 6 brothers, 1 sister.
Wow. Okay.
So I always felt being a middle child, I had to fight for my own food. You know, Mom would make a big casserole, and
you gotta
the older
dive
boy,
right in
you
there.
gotta dive
Yep.
in. So I'm a fighter for myself, but then also just in my heart, the injustice against children, women, animals, mankind, like what it means to be human, and anyone who threatens that, really, it just affects me. So I've always been a big advocate for that fight against injustice with my charity work and just in life in general. It really, you know, you read these scripts and and the table reads, you're like, oh,
Puts things in perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and you sort of feel like you're playing a real life superhero, even though it's movie magic, right? It's fictitious, but you're telling a story, and just to educate people, because our bad guys, which I feel like a lot of bad guys, they don't start out bad.
Right.
There's something that happens
Right.
from.
You start out good, and then how do you get bad? You know, where does that all come from?
Yeah, and there's usually something you can trace it back to, which is really important for our audience to see with our format for FBI Most Wanted. You see the story, the arc of the bad guy within the first act, and you see the crime that happens. So everyone is in this place of seeing them in a human way versus trying to figure out why they did it. You're kind of understanding a little bit, and then they kind of go off the deep end, and you got to reel them in, and you got to bring them to justice.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool show, and it's very new for me, and I love my character. I love Kenny Crosby. He's ex-Army, so he's a vet. He struggles with some PTSD.
Which a lot of guys do, and a lot of men
I have
and
two
women.
brothers in the Army, so my oldest one does, and my youngest one, I hope he never does, but it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And in more ways than just being a part of the military, you can have PTSD
From a lot of different things.
things. It's a real issue. And just, I mean, I have my episode 7, which was really deep diving into my character and this other vet who kind of goes on a killing spree. But yeah, it's a gritty show. There's always a good outcome at the end, and each show is really cool because you can watch it on its own. You don't have to follow the story arc of the season.
You can just jump right in.
You can jump right in, and it catches you
Yeah.
within the first act, which I love.
That's really cool. What did your brothers think when you told them about the role in the show?
Well, one of my first acting jobs, I was going to college to be a chemical engineer.
Really?
At Chapman, yeah.
Wow.
I love science, and acting, you know, God kind of took me
pulled you
this
there,
way.
yeah.
Yeah, and one of my first gigs was Generation Kill, where I got to play a character named Jason Lilly from the book, from the 2003 invasion into Baghdad. And to this day, I even called Jason, we're friends, about my big episode where it's all about PTSD and talking to him about just the issues. And, you know, it's really cool to portray these people and also have resources like my brothers, like Jason, who I can talk to, and even my brother Drexel, he's like, thank you. You told the real story that wasn't sugar-coated after we did Generation Kill. And that's why I love my character, because I feel like my whole career I've been playing military roles, police roles, FBI roles, and funny enough, growing up in Arizona, my next door neighbor was an FBI agent.
Oh, wow.
So he would tell us crazy stories.
So it's like a full circle moment for you.
It
then.
sort of is,
Yeah.
and it feels, I feel at home. I feel at home playing this character and working with Dick Wolf and
Yeah.
the FBI team.
That's really cool. So
Yeah.
the other part of your career is doing the whole Twilight thing. You know, it was
Yeah.
a good run for you. What was that chapter of your life like, and what do you look back on now and think about?
Again, life is built up in these like little chapters. Some are larger, some are smaller, and you know, for that, I love it. You know, I really do. I look back, I wish I was present more. I
There was a lot going on, I'm sure.
there was a lot going on, and in your young 20s, and I hadn't experienced that much life
Right.
to be just catapulted into this roller coaster of experiences. You know, it was such a unique experience that I loved it. I loved it. I wish I could go back and re-experience it again, because I think I'd experience it a little bit more presently, obviously.
Right.
But I love my cast. I loved my character. I've been really blessed with playing characters that they have layers, but there's always some sort of. I love comedy. There's a lot of comedic layers in the characters that I've played, and I appreciate that. And in this, that's what's really cool too, because Keisha Castle Hughes and I were the young bucks in the show.
Right.
And the cool thing about FBI agents, when they're going to all these different cities and they have their MCC, their mobile command center, you're always waiting, right? And you want to get like the cool, good food in your city. So we had this one scene where we're in Buffalo and Keisha and her character Hannah, we always joke about like, hey, what do you want to eat? You know, and I have some comedy that comes out because we're in Buffalo, so buffalo wings have got to be good here, right? Obviously, let's get some buffalo wings. So yeah, I like it.
That's cool. Well, speaking of comedy, you were in Accepted, which is a super funny movie. What do you remember about that experience? That's like a nice cult movie that's had some good legs years later.
Yeah. I was actually just talking to Justin Long about that a couple weeks ago. He was going to meet up with Jonah, and we had Blake in that movie. Good friend.
Louis Black's in that movie.
Louis is in that. Yeah. You know, my buddy Brendan, really great actor, really fun part. I mean, Steve Pink directed it, and it was such a cool experience. And I think that was one of those where we were just having fun. Like the producers, director, they just encouraged us to just run with it. And Justin, such a brilliant actor. I really learned a lot from him with watching him work on that, because he just does that. You know, he's very present and he loves to improv. And you have Jonah Hill, who's
all-timer.
All-timer now.
Especially from that role to where he is now. I mean, think about it.
He's played a lot of unique roles.
Yeah. A little different than being on the lawn, running around saying, "Ask me about my wiener," right?
When did you just see that?
I mean, I've seen it a few times.
That's a good memory. It's one
of those that kind of sticks out.
We just rewatched that. I'm like, man, this is so funny.
Yeah, I mean, that was like mid-2000s, and it's still funny, you know?
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool deal. How about your faith? That's something that's a big part of your life. So how has that grounded you, and how has that helped you just throughout your career as well?
Faith. I mean, you just have to have faith. I think I had a talk with another actor and I'm not trying to push any agenda, you know, and I don't convict anyone. I believe what I believe, and I'm not here to judge. That's not my job. But it's got to be such a lonely life to live if you don't believe in something. And in our profession, when you can't control what auditions you get or if you book, I mean, it is a very depressing career that I've chosen.
Very isolating.
Well, isolating, but also everyone's telling you no. Kellan, I'm too tall. Kellan, I'm too pretty. Kellan, I'm not pretty enough.
I'm sure you've heard all those things.
I've heard all of them.
Yeah, which is insane. Like, can we just focus on the acting, you know?
Yeah, but you know, and to each their own. Like the casting directors have to get the role that they want, and you know, the best actor for the job, or the one now who has the most social media numbers. Like it's
that's a part of it too.
But my faith has really just kept me solid through it. It's been my anchor. And to the actors who don't have faith, I always ask them, I'm like, what do you have to like hold on to then if all you have is yourself and you can't get to where you want to get on your own, you know? And a lot of those actors, they fight depression and they fight mental illness, and they have codependencies with different pills and substances, and it's not the answer, you know. It's self-medicating, and I'd rather, you know, just have faith in that the best is yet to come. And there's been many seasons that I mean, especially after Twilight, how do you go from something like this and you have expectations that it's always going to be that way, and then it's not. And these highs and lows, and my faith has always been constant. And that's actually one of the main reasons I married my wife, because I didn't realize how important my faith was, that I needed to find that in my partner in life. And so when I found that in her, and my heart, my spirit, and her spirit was like, yes, this is meant to be. This is you guys. This is what I have for you guys. And it was the easiest yes in my life to marry her.
That's awesome. Good deal. Kellan, really nice to meet you.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Check this guy out. January 7th, the big day, FBI Most Wanted. For Kellan, I'm DJ. See you next time.
10 p.m.